Dr. Pete, today we're going to have an important conversation about how to have productive meetings and set up meeting rhythms that feed you and your team and your business. We're going to talk about the difference between meetings and trainings a bit, and ultimately, where this is all going to land is to...
Hello and welcome to the Remarkable CEO Podcast, a show dedicated to chiropractors who want to transform their job into a business, so that they can have a remarkable practice as part of a remarkable life, not instead of one. With your hosts, Dr. Pete Camiolo and Dr. Stephen Franson.
Welcome back to another episode of the Remarkable CEO Podcast. I'm Dr. Stephen Franson.
And I'm Dr. Pete Camiolo.
Hey, we're super stoked to be here with you two guys today. We just appreciate everybody just always showing up, ready to learn. Dr. Pete and I, we like to say we might not be the smartest guys in the room, but we're the best students in the room. So I so appreciate everybody showing up with that learner spirit, right? So today we're going to have an incredibly compelling conversation about something that could either be the key to you growing your business to the level of your dreams throughout your career, or it could be a total time suck and waste of time. Dr. Pete, today we're going to have an important conversation about how to have productive meetings and set up meeting rhythms that feed you and your team and your business. We're going to talk about the difference between meetings and trainings a bit, and ultimately, where this is all going to land is to, create greater accountability with your team through meetings, right? So they've heard us say many times that your reporting systems create your visibility into your business so you can see what's going on, and meeting rhythms create greater accountability. And we all know what's true is everything that we want out of our business and frankly out of our lives can be found on the other side of greater accountability.
Yeah, I love this conversation, Doc. I'm so glad we're having it. I think it's timely. It's always timely to talk practical. This is a fundamental to the CEO and the CEO's journey. And many of you are in the ascension as CEOs. And I think we're all in the ascension as CEOs, because what level CEO do you want to become? You want to continue to grow as to the next level? Absolutely. Then we're going to continue to talk through and continue to refine all of the rhythms that you have established in your business. So whether you're listening to this podcast and you say, oh, I've got this dialed in, or you're listening to the podcast and say, I'm far from having any of this dialed in, wherever you find yourself, this speaks directly to you, because it's all about, are you optimizing it? Have you optimized each one of these rhythms? Have you optimized it and truly taken it to the next level? So we'll define what optimization means as we go through some practical things. I want to go through some very practical. This actually birthed for me out of CEO meetings that I've been having, Doc, recently, and recognizing that, we can lose sight. We can take our eyes off of this, and this can become less functional, less effective. And this rhythm, these meeting and training rhythms, are fundamental to your success, your team's success, the success of your business, ultimately to you being the CEO of your business. So again, this conversation today is very practical. Hopefully it serves as a reminder. Hopefully it also gives you some ideas. Hopefully it'll help you refine what you have done, maybe create some redirection in what you are doing, and hopefully optimize everything you've got going on. So I hope this is one of the most very practical episodes that we could do, because again, this is something you can immediately put into practice, immediately implement in your business today as you're listening it today. And so, Doc, I'd love to just kind of give an overview of the general framework that I think we can cover here today. One thing I want to talk about is the importance of timing. I want to get into that and the significance of timing. Number two, I want to talk about the importance of structure and why that's so vital. Number three, I want to talk about the importance of data and why that's such a significant thing. And then number four, I want to talk about leadership and what that looks like. And we're going to look at it through the lens of your accountability grid. So, Docs, let's start with timing. So, Doc Stephen, I know we recently went through this as an organization, and sometimes it's like pulling teeth, but one of the things we have to do is set our meetings for the year. And so one of the meeting rhythms that we set is our quarterly board meetings and our annual meeting. And, it's a big deal for us, right, as an organization to to get all the leadership team to show up to one place, to dedicate the amount of time that we dedicate, whether it's 1 day or 2 days, to these meetings. It's a tremendous amount. And one of the most important things, we had to set that and get that set and scheduled on the calendar, right? So we had to look ahead and make sure that we have all the timing for all the rhythms set. Whether it's, again, so starting with your big rocks and big meetings, like getting your board meetings scheduled out, and then come back and get your quarterly review scheduled out and look at all the meeting rhythms,
monthlies, weeklies, dailies, right? So
all of quarterly, monthly, weekly, daily, all of those need to be scheduled out. So that's my first point that I want to make, Doc, is the importance of having that, so that, because meetings should be a proactive, not a reactive experience. And too often we meet reactively because things are on fire, right? But if we are proactively meeting, we know, hey, that is an issue today. That is a concern. That's an issue. I'm going to go ahead and put it onto the agenda for this meeting coming up, the appropriate meeting where that should be discussed, and it will be discussed then. And what does that enable you to do? Focus and be productive. And that's what I hope that, one thing that can happen. So first thing I just want to talk about is, are your meeting rhythms scheduled out? Are they on the schedule? And does everybody on your team know which meetings they're attending? And has everyone lined up their schedule to make sure they can be there? Is that happening? Look out a year ahead and ask yourself, is it scheduled out? Timing, and getting the timing thing down is just the most practical and most important things you can do.
Yeah, I mean, you unpacked a lot there, Dr. Pete. So I'm going to circle back and make sure that that people didn't miss the golden nuggets that were that you were just laying down there. So, I will tell you right now that you are touching on what I would consider one of the most powerful and easiest success hacks that we have in practice. Everybody loves a good hack, right? So the action step of scheduling out your meetings and meeting rhythm for the year is a success hack. It's a success strategy. It's a very simple thing that you spend a half an hour doing, or you get your COO to do, or your office manager, or your back office CA. You get this on the calendar, right? So it's a huge hack, and it pays you back week after week after week. So 52 weeks a year, it keeps paying you back. And if you don't do this, it's going to kick your ass for 52 weeks, right? So it's like one of those things that you absolutely have to get in place. So when we say, all right, so schedule it out. Schedule out what? You want a time block for each of these meetings, right? So you started with the big ones, right? So it's going all the way out. It's the annual meeting. It's the quarterly board meetings. It's the monthly meetings, it's the weekly meetings, and then it's the daily meetings, right? So, and each one of these meetings requires a very specific, period of time that you need to block and put it on the calendar. It's got to live on the calendar. If it's on the calendar, it's going to happen. If it's not on the calendar, it's not going to happen, right? So your daily pre-shift and post-shift huddles, it's 10 to 15 minutes, right? Pre-shift and post-shift. Your weekly team meetings. So I like a 60-minute meeting that is every single week. I prefer Monday at lunchtime. I think that's the best time to have it. Start the week off strong. Then you have your same page meeting with your office manager, and that's about an hour every week. If you get really, really good at it, you could probably sneak it in a half an hour, but you know what? You don't want to compress that meeting. It's a critical meeting. Like all of these meetings, if you do these meetings consistently and you structure it so that you are creating the collisions, creating the communications and the exchanges, you'll have a creative process. Or if you don't do that, you're going to be playing problem whack-a-mole, right? Which is those emergency reactive meetings, right? So everybody's rolling their eyes right now as I say that, because we've all spent a season there, right? So setting up that weekly marketing meeting. So that might be a 15-minute standing huddle where you're talking about, this is what we're promoting and this is what we're marketing. That's just a hot meeting, right? So, and then we have our weekly trainings, which is a separate and distinct thing where we have our team training, we have our DC trainings, our CA trainings, but trainings are different than meetings, right? So training implies that you are role playing, right? So everybody loves to hate role playing, but that's really the difference between having a training and having a meeting. So we're not talking about trainings right now. We're talking about meetings. Now, if you said to yourself, oh, Franson, you got me. Have you been spying on me? Like, we're not role playing in our trainings. Well, guess what? you just had another meeting, right? And I know most of you think meetings suck. I get it, because most of your meetings are spent playing problem whack-a-mole because you're not training enough. So we need more trainings and fewer meetings, believe it or not, right? So then we get into our monthly meetings, which are our monthly marketing meeting. It's an all hands deck to keep marketing front of mind, and to have our monthly scorecard meetings, which would be your office manager, your COO checking in on that 30, 60, 90-day rhythm. And then, of course, we have our quarterlies, which is our quarterly board meetings, which are either full day, 8-hour meetings where we go through vision casting and we go through our process and product, and then we go through our goal setting and our marketing plan. That's either a full day, 8-hour meeting every other quarter, or the in-between quarters, we have a briefer 4-hour board meeting where we really focus on goal setting and the marketing calendar. And then lastly, Dr. Pete, it's the quarterly individual, which means private quarterly review. So, I mean, it sounds like a lot because it is, but at the end of the day, if you're not doing this proactively in a creative way, trust me, you're going to spend the exact same amount of time, energy, focus, and money, but those will be reactive meetings where you're focusing all your time on dealing with problems and issues.
So I wanted to bring up 2 points. Number one is, just listening to you, number one is the working on the business versus in the business. These are actually, if you think about the way you're spending your time, we did an episode recently on how the CEOs, the 3 different roles, whether it's the role of an operator, the role of the CEO, and the role of the investor. This is a role, this is a moment where as a team, when we're meeting, training and meeting, but let's talk meetings here, that this is a working on the business moment. If you're not training, as Doc said, I just want to make sure I clarify here, you're playing problem whack-a-mole. That's not really working on your business. It doesn't have the same effect because it's not as effective. So we want to have effective meetings. I'm going to talk about that in just a minute. But the second thing I wanted to say is that we have, it's about winning, right? Like we are here to win in business. Where we say it's win, win, win. Okay. Well, if you say things like that, and those are really great things to say, well, this is how you do it, right? So this is a very practical, like this is how you create a win, 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 win for the business, a win for the team, win for the community, win for the patient. Everybody wins, right? This is a win, win, win. So meetings are that. So when you win you want to win this year, if you want to win this year, you look at your BHAGs, all the objectives you were setting out to accomplish this year. If you want to win the year, you've got to win the quarter. You got to win the quarters. If you win the quarters, then you're going to win the year. If you want to win the quarters, you've got to win the months, right? You've got to win the months. If you want to win the quarter, you got to win the months. If you want to win the month, you've got to win the weeks, right? You've got to win the week. If you win the week, we win the month. If you want to win the week, you've got to win the day. You've got to win the day. If you want to win the day, you got to win the shift. And so each one of these rhythms comes back to winning. If you want to have a winning business, you want to create a win-win-win for you, for your team, for your patients, your community. If you want it to be everybody wins, it comes back to these rhythms. So that's very important for this. The second thing I want to talk about, Doc, is structure. I want to talk about the structure. So every time we gather, there's an order to it, right? There's an actual structure. There's a rhythm and there's a structure. Doc, you talked about how at the beginning that the purpose of the meeting rhythm is to create greater accountability. The purpose of the structure is to create a format with which you can have accountability, that it's organized, it's systematized, it's clear, it's not stressful. There's clear expectations and it's ordered and there's a flow to it. And so, we obviously have tools and all these things that we have created. Many of you who are our CEO clients, you're leveraging these resources, but there's a structure. There must be a structure. And, if you want to make it harder on yourself, don't have a structure. But if you want to make it more successful and you want it to be more productive, create a structure. So we recommend that each one of those rhythms that Doc just went through, that there's a structure for that time. You say, what am I going to do in my same page meeting? What do I do in that marketing meeting? What do I do in those monthly meetups or quarterly review? What do I do at the board meetings? What do I do in the huddle? There's a structure for every one of those. And that's what makes it successful ultimately.
Hey Pete, let's make it easier for these guys to be successful. So as you're just, as you're listing out all of these different meetings and the structure, we have tools for each of these, right? So we have a tool that drives each one of our meetings, right? So the huddle has the huddle sheet. There's a huddle form that drives the meeting, right? So our team meeting, there's a team meeting agenda. There is a team training agenda, right? So we have every one of these meetings is driven by a specific tool or report. Let's give them the agenda for the team meeting, right? So that's the fundamental primary meeting that happens every single week. So we'll put that there'll be a link in the show notes down below, guys. If you need help with that, of course, as always, you can reach out to us and we can help you walk through that, like to understand that meeting agenda. But at the end of the day, that's the structure that is executed through the meeting. You just follow this format, right? So if you're wondering what to do and say and who does what and who says what, follow the agenda. It tells you exactly what to do, including who should be doing it, which Dr. Pete, as you were saying that, I was like imagining, I was just running the tape in my mind of like, wow, I can remember there was a season and it lasted way too long. I would say for like the first 10 years in business, man, our team meetings, it was just the Franson show, and it would be like everybody would pour into the boardroom, right? Like into our war room. Everybody'd sit around the table. They would be eating their lunch while I put on a show, right? So it was like, okay, let's get this meeting in order. And next thing you know, I was trying to like inspire and excite and engage and inform. And I was reporting to these people. And I was literally just exhausted by it. They're all snacking away and eating their lunch and smiling and nodding while I was putting on a show for them every week. And I'm like, I'd leave those meetings and I'd, whether things were good, bad, or indifferent in the practice, I would be exhausted and I'd be like a bit stressed because I really didn't get anything out of the meeting myself other than inspiring my team, what have you. And then I realized, well, wait a minute. If I'm going to really be a CEO, CEOs have information and data flow to them, not through them. I'm like, I got all these people on my payroll. Tell you what, I'm going to sit back. I'm going to eat my lunch while I let them take the stage, right? So it's like everybody on my payroll here, everybody on my team, these people they're in charge of different parts of the business. They have accountability around there. So why aren't they reporting to me as opposed to the other way around? So man, that was just a big inflection point for me in my career. And that was literally just one of the steps in the process of being a CEO, because, when you're an owner operator, that made sense, because I just hired a bunch of assistants to be around me to support me while I did the stuff, right? So at team meeting, I had to get up there and tell them all the stuff I did and what I'm doing now, what I'm going to do next, right? So, I mean, that was that season, right? So it was my job to take care of the patients. As the owner operator, your job is to take care of the customer, right? As the CEO, your job is to take care of the team, and the team takes care of the patients, right? And the team takes care of the customer, right? So, this was our chance now as the CEO to sit at the table with our office manager to the right, driving the meeting, and our team reporting to us.
So this is where, again, as the leader of the organization, the CEO, if your job is to, we like to say you're leading the business, right? Where your COO would run the business, this is where you transfer the leadership to the team. You delegate that, right? They take a department or director of a department within the business. So think through the accountability grid. Doc is talking about the leadership right now, and how in his, be CEO and after CEO, before CEO and after CEO, it's like, this is how the meetings went. And now it's very different, is the structure actually enables the function. That's what we like to say. Structure enables function. So structure of the meeting enables the function of being able to delegate the leadership to another person. Let's call it your leadership team, so that they can be empowered to run the meeting. So if you look at all of your meeting rhythms, the question you need to ask yourself is, who runs this meeting, or who's leading this meeting? And it's a who, not how question, because again, if you've built the structure shows you essentially this is the flow, and you can lead this, you can influence that and create the structure if that's important to you. And you can teach. We like to say it's done by you, with you, for you. So you can teach, and you should teach how to do this. And this is where that role of office manager, that role of COO comes in, and they step into a position of leadership. And I'll tell you, there's nothing more powerful than for a leader on your team to be treated like a leader. And giving people the opportunity to lead is actually what they need. They need to be leading. Otherwise, they are not going to be fed, and they need to be able to lead. So that is a requirement for finding and keeping A-level players.
That's right.
We talked about that. We continue to revisit that. And so that's something that, Doc, it's just so important what you said. And so wherever you find yourself in this journey from owner-operator to CEO, and wherever you're finding, even if you've delegated this leadership to your leadership team, when's the last time you really empowered and equipped and encouraged them in that and really poured into them and helping them and sharing with them even ways that maybe they could take that leadership to another level, enhancing that? So really thinking through, how can I make each one of these meetings and these meeting rhythms more effective? Because that was one of the things I said we would discuss was, leadership and effectiveness. And the other one was data. Each one of our meetings needs to be data driven. We talk about how we make decisions. The purpose of a meeting is to lead to making decisions exactly how we're going to do. So on the daily, this is how we're going to handle this patient, this patient, this patient, this scenario, that scenario. It's decisions. We're making decisions. The purpose of the weekly team meeting is to identify what the issues are from our scoreboard, to meet about those, discuss those, and then solve it and make decisions about what we're going to do about that. And then we assign accountability to who's got that, when's that going to get done, right? And we do that. And so that's, you create structure, leadership, but data is what drives that, right? So data drives. So when you show up to the meeting, you're not just flying by the seat of your pants, not just trying to, like Doc talked about, inspire people, although I do hope that there's inspired people here and we're inspired by the work we're doing, but it's data driven. So one part data, one part gut, two parts data is what we like to say. That's a ratio, right? Where it's a recipe.
That's right.
You get it wrong, it doesn't taste right. So you've got to get that right. We've got to get the data in there. So if that's an area of challenge for you, you might say, hey, we've got some structure. I feel like we're doing that, but we lack data. That's a key component. And I know that some of you are CEOs out there. We've got to do a better job of collecting the data and having the right data ready to go so that meeting is running on schedule. It's effective. If it's a 60-minute meeting, a 15-minute meeting, a 90-minute meeting, a 4-hour meeting, whatever the size of the timing of the meeting, that meeting is effective. And data is what creates the effectiveness because it gives us the intel to discuss and decide what we're going to do so we can make decisions. The purpose of a meeting is to make a decision, and the decision is to make this business better.
That's right.
And that's where data comes in. And then the leadership side, Doc, as you talked about, and that's what creates the effectiveness, which is ultimately the litmus test. I want to come in and airdrop into your meeting and say, was that an effective huddle? Was that an effective team meeting? Was that an effective CEO same page meeting? Was that an effective monthly meetup? That's the question, is was that effective? Meaning leading to change, leading to positive change, leading to growth, leading to transformation, leading to the outcome that we want to create there, driving towards those outcomes. Doc, it's just so powerful.
So the law of the jungle is we always start with the heart, right? So this heart, head, hands, feet, and that's absolutely gospel for all of these meetings, everything, huddle, weekly meetings, trainings, monthlies, quarterlies, annual, right? So it's always start with the heart, your why, head, the what, the hands, this is how, the feet, let's go, let's role play, right? So it's always heart, head, hands, feet. And guess what? You're the visionary. CEOs, I'm talking to you right now. You're not off the hook. It's not like, oh yeah, I just sit back and eat my lunch like Franson said. It's like, no. I sat back down after I opened the meeting and started with the heart. I cast the vision. That's my job as the visionary, is I had to get the temperature right. I got to get everybody engaged. I've got to get everybody focused. I've got to get the temperature up in the room and elevate the energy of the room. Your CEO, chief energy officer. And then the hardest part, hand it off. Step back, step off the stage, let your COO take over, hand them the authority and let them run it, right? Don't overwhelm your COO. Let them run that meeting, give them that authority, right? So, and then they go through in this particular situation with if we're referring to the weekly team meeting, they go through a structure of talking about what are we training on, what are we marketing, and there's just a focused discussion. And then we get right into metrics on the scoreboard. on track or off track. The purpose of that is to expose the issues that we need to discuss in the second half of the meeting. We tackle those issues. We identify, discuss, and solve, just like Gino Wickman teaches us in Traction. And we come to decisions and we take actions. Do what, by whom, by when. There's a recap, and then we're back to saving the planet, right? So guys, we're going to give you that agenda for the team meeting. Make sure you check it out. It's in the show notes down below. Take that, use it, let it inspire you, create your own version of it, what have you. If you need any help, jump on a call with us and we'll talk to you about how to exactly do this and how to leverage it properly. If you're hearing that and being like, oh my gosh, my office manager running this team meeting, I don't know if they have the chops to do that. Well, I ask you, are you developing your office manager? It's the most important person on your team. They run your team and they run your business. If that sounds attractive to you and you're like, oh man, that's all I wanted for Christmas, it was that person, right? So we have the Remarkable Office Manager program. If you want to plug your office manager or the person that you feel may have the chops to become your office manager, maybe be groomed one day to be your COO, we have the Remarkable Office Manager program. You can just go to theremarkablepractice.com and check that out. That's available to you as well. Guys, meeting rhythms are just so critical, right? So if meeting rhythms are like the family dinner, right, that you meet every night and it creates this environment that forces the communications and the communications that lead to greater accountability. Remember, everything that you want out of your business and out of your life will be found on the other side of greater accountability.
All right, Remarkable CEOs, it is awesome that we have in the studio with us once again. I'm sure he's going to tell me how many times this guy's been a special guest, one of our experts in the Remarkable CEO program and in the Remarkable Practice. We love having him on as a guest to our CEO podcast here. And he is very much in the game in the marketing space and someone we look to for advice, for guidance, and direction. So we stay on the cutting edge of how to reach the people. We like to say, you know, your brand is your message and you're the messenger, and there is nobody better that can help us get our message out, get our brand out there, and do it in the right way than Dr. Nick Silveri from LVRG Media. Dr. Nick, thanks for joining me here on the Remarkable CEO podcast today.
Well, thanks for having me again. I lose track of how many times it's been, but I'll still stand by my all-time leader guest.
I do know that you are the all-time leader, and I also don't know how many. We'd have to go back and do an audit at this point. Yeah. But thank you for taking the time. And so we were at an event recently in Dallas, Texas. It was our team building immersion. And Doc, you spoke, and I was sitting in the front with Dr. Franson, and you know, I'm listening to it and I'm like, wow, like this is all new to me. Like I've heard about some of these things, but I have no idea. And I turned around and I looked at the entire group, 400 people in the room. Every eyeball and ear was like fixed on you. And I thought, okay, he is clearly talking about something in the marketing space that a lot of people are like, I don't know about any of this. Tell me more. And so you agreed to come on to the podcast as one of our trusted experts and give us some insights about, you know, where we're at. This is 2023. We know that marketing is always changing. We have to stay abreast of what's going on. And that's, again, who you are. And we always look to you for that. So I'm just going to open it up and give you the floor and let you run with it. I'll poke around, ask questions if I need to, but I'd love for you to maybe unpack some of the things that you also shared with us in Dallas, and then anything else that's on your mind, your heart, and help us have the best year yet.
Sounds good. So when I was in Dallas, I agree, like, you know, how when you're speaking up at the front of the room, you can definitely tell when people are engaged and when they're not as engaged. And when I was looking back at 400 sets of eyes and a lot of people taking notes, I knew that they were interested. And I had a lot of people come up to me afterwards that were interested. So what we were talking about is how can chiropractors use ChatGPT in their business and in their marketing. And, you know, I've probably talked about this before, but I go and get training out in the world of marketing from the best people in the world. And I develop my marketing brain so that I can talk to anybody with any type of business about marketing. But because I've run a practice for 16 years, I have that brick and mortar chiropractic mentality that everything filters through. So a lot of the things that come onto the scene in marketing or tactics or things. They're really made for big businesses, e-commerce, national, international brands. So only certain things apply to local businesses, and then more specifically to brick and mortar service-based businesses. So when ChatGPT came along, I was just so excited because my marketing brain saw the opportunity for disruption that I really haven't seen probably since social media. So social media came along and really changed the dynamic of content marketing and getting your message out into your community. ChatGPT is going to really disrupt the way search is done, maybe not so much at the local level, but definitely at like the national level. And so I wanted to basically take that chiropractic brain, take that marketing brain, and bring it to an audience that I love, really try to explain like, what are the things, how can you use it to make your life easier, whether it's marketing or just business in general. So I'll kind of give you on, I talk about content marketing all the time. That is going to make it a whole lot easier for people to be consistent with their content, I believe. I don't think that it is this panacea where you can just hit a button and it's going to spit out all the content that you need, and you're not going to have to add anything to it. Dr. Franson always says God only makes geniuses, and you're going to have to add your genius to whatever you're getting from ChatGPT. So in terms of content marketing, I really think there are a few different elements that are going to make it, or that ChatGPT is going to make much easier. The first and probably the most time saving is going to be just the research side of it. So a lot of times when I'm creating content, especially video content, but blog content as well, but with video content, if I don't know everything there is to know about that topic, or maybe I'm creating content for my office and I haven't seen patients in a long time, so some of that stuff is not, at the tip of my brain. So I will do some research and I'll read some blogs, and it'll take me maybe 30 minutes to get information from Google and from the internet. Well, ChatGPT is going to speed that up a lot because I can just put a prompt in of exactly what I'm looking for, read what they give me, make sure that it sounds right. Sometimes it spits out things that aren't 100% accurate. So you have to verify that what you're getting is correct. But, in my experience so far, it has been very helpful. And instead of it taking me 30 minutes, it's taking me 2, 5, and it's just saving me a lot of time there. The next step is, how can you start to structure, whether it's the title of the video, the title of the blog, the bullet points, especially for video. Like, I don't like creating video scripts and reading them. I feel like you should just own it and have maybe 3 bullet points, on top of your head that allow you to just, kind of flow. And that way it's a lot more natural. So what I'm looking for is, okay, I have my video title. Now I feed that video title into ChatGPT and say, give me a couple of bullet points that I can talk about on the video. Give me 10 of them. I only need 3. I pick which 3 are the best, or maybe there's only 2 that are good, and then I make up a third one. But it allows me to, again, do all these things that I hate doing. I'm good at like hitting record once I know what I'm supposed to be talking about. But the research and the structuring is what always tends to cause me to put things off. If I had that taken care of for the next 100 videos, it makes it much easier for me to just like get started, if that makes sense.
Man, I just those 2, as somebody who obviously we create content, we're building out a lot of content, we write copy for different things, like even this podcast as an example. And then thinking about, as you always talk about in your, whenever I refer a client over to you, or just the times that I've been with you and listened to you speak and teach, is in a world where everybody's got something to say, you got to differentiate yourself with your authentic brand, with your authentic message. And the canned kind of marketing strategies, those days are probably over, if they weren't already over. But people can see through that, and it's a noisy marketplace. So for people to really stand out, what I like about what you just said is that you can filter through it and actually get it down to, a message that you can own. Like you said, when you press play on that camera, or press record, I should say, you've got to be able to stand there confidently and deliver the message.
Yeah.
And the time that a lot of doctors, they run into what they call, writer's block.
Mm-hmm.
And that happens to a lot of us. And it's like, and then what happens? We give up and we're like, screw it, I'm not doing anything. And then we come back a week later and we're still didn't get it done. So I love this already. Just like thinking about those things, two things right there, is huge. I know you went through like probably 10 or 12 at the event. Do you feel like, we could go through a couple more here today? And then I think, you've got, I'd love for you to be able to maybe give insights into where the doctors can learn more about this, because I know from a strategic standpoint, this is something we really got to be on top of.
Yeah. And the one thing that you kind of mentioned in terms of just like authenticity, marketers ruin everything. So whatever idea comes along, you can be sure that marketers are going to come along and just beat it into the ground, and it'll be obsolete, inside of a couple of years. So, AI generated content and ideas and a lot of these things are going to just be everywhere, in the next, once they really open up these tools in the next 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, they're just going to be everywhere. So your unique perspective, your authentic content is what's really going to resonate. So one of the main things that I was talking about in Dallas was using ChatGPT as a tool to be able to just get the juices flowing. It might be able to get you 40% of the way there, 60% of the way there, maybe even 80% of the way there in some cases, but you're going to have to come over the top of it and add your layer of authenticity, your layer of expertise on it. But what I don't want you to think of this as just like a, done for you. All you have to do is type in a sentence and it's going to give you this big, beautiful thing that's going to change your practice. What's going to change your practice is to be sharing your expertise and using this tool to make it easier. Just like an iPhone camera makes it much easier to create content than it was 5 years ago. You still could have done video content 20 years ago, but it was much more difficult. Now with iPhone cameras and social media, it becomes easier. These are all tools. These are not the solution to all of your problems. You have to have the strategy of what are you going to use it for? What are you going to use the content for? So a couple of other things that I think are going to be really helpful. I'm just thinking off the top of my head of what some of the things were on the list. One of the things is writing a book. I think that writing a book is always going to make you stand out as an expert, especially if you can get down to a really niche topic that you love treating, a type of patient that you love treating, a condition, whatever it might be. Because a lot of times, when I get free books from people all the time with all the good intentions of reading them. I buy books all the time with all the good intentions of reading them. A lot of these books back here were bought with good intention and probably have not been read yet. And they don't always get read. But the fact that they wrote the book makes me it's just a social proof thing. It's just like, well, they took the time to do that. They must know what they're talking about, right? So writing a book, starting with a blinking cursor on a blank page is a daunting task. ChatGPT and other AI tools will, every step of the process. I mean, you could probably ask ChatGPT, what are the steps to writing a book? And ChatGPT will help you to take what you've said, whether it's a Zoom recording that you then turn into a transcript using something like Otter AI, taking that, feeding it into ChatGPT to summarize it down to maybe 1,500 or 2,500 words instead of it being 10,000 words of you going over here and you going over there. Then being able to put that into chapter format. I mean, it's not just ChatGPT. ChatGPT was just the easiest for regular people to really understand, but there are so many different tools being created right now for video, for audio. There was one, 11 Labs. I didn't talk about this in Dallas, but 11 Labs is a tool that you can feed. I fed a 3-minute clip of one of my videos so that because when I talk on video, it's different than when I talk in person. I'm just more animated. So I wanted the audio clip that I fed into it to be more of the animated version of me. I gave it to it, and I copied and pasted something off of the internet, put it into the model using the model that they created of my voice, and it sounded exactly like me. It sounded a little bit stilted, just like the way AI voices sound, but it was my voice. And if you could feed up to 50 clips into it, and I'll do that, and it'll probably get much better to where I might be able to, upload a blog and have, if somebody wants to listen to me read the blog instead of read it themselves. So that's just like one little tool. And I discovered the 11 Labs because there was a story of like Nazis and incels on like 4chan or something, using it to make celebrities say racist things. And I was like, if it's good enough for the Nazis and incels, it must be a good tool, or they wouldn't be using it. So I looked into it and I was like, oh, this is great. So the 11 Labs is not Nazis and incels. It's just who ended up using it to get in the news. But anyway, so that is just like one tool. Otter AI, what's it called? It's like Cynthia will create a video for you using like an AI person. So it's just like these things are coming out every day almost, and it will just become easier and easier for people to create content. But everybody that is lazy is going to rely 100% on these tools. Your authenticity is what's going to allow you to stand out from the noise. And then the last thing that I said at the event was writing contracts and reviewing contracts. I think that is like a really cool way that ChatGPT is going to be able to be used. My girlfriend, who's an attorney who writes contracts or writes trusts and wills for a living, she was a little bit nervous when I showed her like what all it could do. So luckily we have a physical job, so we're not going to be eliminated by AI just yet. But it's amazing how, we spend a lot of money sometimes to get associate contracts or non-disclosures or whatever, and we're signing a lot of contracts. So you can feed a contract into it, have it give you the summary bullet points of like what you need to know about it, and it takes you 5 minutes instead of you just blindly signing it hoping that there's nothing bad in there. So it's never ending, the opportunity with with the tools, and you just have to kind of understand how they work and how you could use them.
So good. So when we talk about becoming the CEO, one of the things we always say is you have to use leverage, right? You have to use leverage.
Specific leverage. Yeah.
Specifically leverage for marketing. Right. But we talk about leveraging systems, leveraging technology, leveraging team, as a few. And what's cool is when you think about what you're talking about, the AI, you get all those. You get a systematic approach, you get a invisible team, and you get automation and technology. So it's a way that, as you said, easier to create content. Authentic content is still king, and it will remain king. Yeah. And I mean, I just think if we go back thousands of years, authentic content still rules, so even today. Great strategy. I think you gave us 4 strategies here today. Doc Nick, so how can our listeners learn more? I know my interest is incredibly piqued right now. How do we learn more? Next steps with you? Do you have any resources for us? How do we connect with you? Give us the goods.
So 2 things. One is, if you want to learn more about how chiropractors can use ChatGPT, I created a guide, ChatGPT for chiropractors. And if you go to ChatGPT as in Paul, T as in Tom, for chiropractors, ChatGPT for chiropractors.com. You can opt in there. We'll send you over the guide. You need to be a practicing chiropractor to get that guide. But if you go there and opt in, you can do that. But just like all of these tools, whether it's Facebook or Google or ChatGPT, you need to have somebody who really understands not just that the tool exists, but how can we as chiropractors leverage that opportunity. And so that's what I do at the helm of LVRG Media. I try to skate to where the puck is moving, not reacting 6 months after the fact. So by all of our clients get all the benefit of the fact that I own a practice and that I have to keep on top of these things for my own practice's well-being. So if something works for my practice, we roll it out to all of our clients. So if you're interested in working with a marketing agency that A, is run by a chiropractor, B, is run by a chiropractor who owns a practice, and C, really understands marketing holistically and comprehensively for a practice. If you want to set up a strategy session with me, I'll go through your online presence. We can talk more about ChatGPT on that call. And I'll give you an idea of what you're doing right, what you're doing wrong, opportunities you might be missing out on. So if you're interested in that, go to contentintopatients.com. That's contentintopatients.com. And we can set up a time to talk, and I can give you some specific advice. And I'm sure, Pete, we've talked enough at this point, and you've sent over clients of yours. I try to give as much value on those calls, and I would say that you probably understand that as well, that it's not just a sales pitch for LVRG Media, but we're trying to give you some value.
You 100% do that. I can vouch for you. Absolutely. So, well, you heard it here. Please take advantage of Dr. Nick Silveri's offers, both the chat GPT for chiropractors.com, get that guide. And then it's contentintopatients.com if you want to connect directly with Dr. Nick. Doc, thanks so much for coming on the show. Thanks for being a part of our program. Thanks for being a part of our tribe. You are one of our awesome, remarkable CEOs running a remarkable practice and multiple businesses, and grateful to have you a part of our family. Appreciate you joining me today. And thanks everybody for listening. And we'll see you next week on the next episode of the Remarkable CEO Podcast. Until then, take care.
Thanks, Pete.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Remarkable CEO Podcast. Remember, what the world needs now is chiropractic. And what chiropractic needs now is more successful chiropractors. If you like this podcast, please subscribe, share with a friend, and leave us a review. And if you'd like to connect with us personally, direct message us on Facebook, LinkedIn, or Instagram. Now go and be remarkable.